Archaon the Pony Chosen has been one of my favorite lords recently for Warriors of Chaos. Today, we've got Norman. He's going to be taking him against the Beastmen, up against Torox the Brass Bull, the current sort of in vogue Beastman lord. An absolute monster. In many ways, though, Archaon is more of a monster than Torox. These two are actually kind of interesting to compare because Torox is a beast in combat. 64 speed is slower than Archaon, but, you know, baseline, it's got flaming damage, 53 attack, 47 defense, massive weapon strength, charge bonus, 130 armor, as well as brass body. Archaon, though, obviously is a caster lord hybrid in one, and looks like we're going to have a little Traderkin there. Does not actually hit Archaon, but of course, Lord of Fire, super strong. Not to mention that, but he also comes loaded with Frenzy baseline, so his, you know, sort of high leadership stats, 78 attack, 60 defense, 517 weapon strength, and 99 charge bonus, so 120 armor, even just on the tin. I mean, 5,000 HP. Our Torox does have more HP slightly to begin with, but Archaon in many ways is more impressive with his baseline stats. Of course, that's not including, you know, Blood Greed, Slaughterer's Call. Once those get charged up, Torox obviously gets better, but even still, Norm here bringing Slayer of Kings, which that combined with Cascading Firecloak can put Archaon over 900 weapon strength. So, I mean, he is an absolute beast, and we'll see, you know, who proves to be the better beast in this situation, but, you know, Torox is, it's interesting, you know, the flaming damage versus the magic damage, caster versus non-caster. Nice Burning Head going to be cast here on the Beastman line. Just absolutely roast through some Ungor herds. I guess I should talk about the builds as they're getting kind of set here. We've got some Minotaurs backing up Torox. Bratium, Lore of Wild. We've already seen a couple of Traderkins on these Marauder Horsemen, dealing some damage there. We've got plenty of Centaurs and Hounds also pressuring this big skirmish cab contingent, including some Centaurs throwing axes. The Chariots running rampant on the Chaos side. Got Forsaken, Chaos Warriors, Weapons all taking damage already. Two Manticores try to drop down on Torox, but he is gonna take no for an answer, in fact, and just completely reject these two Feral Manticores, send them packing without taking barely any damage himself. Minotaurs with shields also just ridiculously strong, helping hold there. That extra melee defense and missile block will come in handy against those Marauder Horsemen. Archaon, though, hitting a little standard die on those Forsaken and other units as they clean up. He himself comes in and just smashes the Bratium directly in the face. That is going to be pretty bad, but balance of power-wise, Beastmen are starting to take a little bit of a lead. It is somewhat fraudulent, as it is Beastmen, but a lot of the Warriors of Chaos units have taken pretty significant damage already. Most of the infantry's worn down. I mean, you've still got a handful of Forsaken here. The Mirror Guard still fighting. But Torox and his Minotaur buddies, not the Butchers of Kalkengard, unfortunately. We don't get the full Moo Cow effect, but they are just grinding right now. And the Chariots also, both units of Tuskor Chariots, kind of involved in this blob for the time being, do get terrified away by the Manticore, at least one of them does. And a nice Burning Head from Archaon is also kind of hanging around this fight, looking to get tangled up with the Brass Boy, but not with the support of the Minotaurs. That's not a fair fight at all, so he's going to go ahead and pull away from that. Things are looking relatively grim, though. I mean, Beastmen definitely pressuring on a lot of fronts here. They've got quite a few units routed. The Manticore's taking so much damage early on and basically doing nothing in return has been a pretty big issue, but at least you've still got them hanging around here, providing a tiny bit of terror into the late game, or sort of mid-game, I guess. But yeah, Torox still being so healthy is definitely a problem, and the Skirmish Cab is going to have to do a little bit of kiting here. So Norm going to make a pretty smart play, just forsake these Forsaken, detach Archaon and the Feral Manticore to go chase Centaurs, the throwing axes. You just unify with his cavalry. The Beastman player making a little bit of a mistake here. Even if you don't engage these Torox and the Minotaurs into the Marauder Horsemen, you want to at least keep them in the vicinity of these Centaurs, so that if the Marauder Horsemen decide to countercharge like they're now doing with the Manticore and with Archaon, you can a little bit quicker respond a little bit quicker, that is. But like here, Torox, the Chariots, the Minotaur's a little bit too far away, so Archaon and his lackeys are able to get away with a little bit of a hit and run here. Sort of reform the lines of Marauder Horsemen, so definitely moving into a later phase of this battle. The Manticore hits an enrage from the throwing axes and drops down. Unfortunate situation for him as he gets side chopped by the Minotaurs there. Torox, though, doesn't really care too much about the Manticore. He's going to make sure to continue to support. Nope, does look like he's going to turn around, try and get the Manticore, but it does get back up into the air. A little bit of an escape. Still some throwing axes at it, though, so that's not going to be great. Forsaken also coming back from the far side of the field. But now the Duel of the Fates, little rear charge from the Manticore. Archaon moves in. Centaurs have other ideas, though. They're going to try not to let this be a fair fight, but Torok's moving in. Probably just going to kill this Manticore straight up. Nice burning head from Archaon, though. Going to try and roast out what's left of the Centaurs here. The Hound's definitely going to rout from that. A handful of remaining Ungors as well. Interesting pick, the Ungors here. I don't know if I absolutely love it, but Cascading Fire Cloak on Archaon. Again, he's going to go up to the 84 melee defense, 600 weapon strength, and all of a sudden, Taurox is starting to take some damage. Manticore got in a few extra little hits there as well, although it is basically done for. And Archaon just having superior stats, honestly, than Taurox, which, you know, I mean, he's the Ever-Chosen. You would hope that he'd have really good stats, but throwing X is probably doing more harm than good there. Taking down a few of the Minotaurs and doing some damage to the Tuskor Chariots as well. But, yeah, Taurox getting some damage in now. I mean, these kind of high-end single entity, if there's any kind of parity between two single entities and they're fighting, it's going to involve a high degree of RNG and variability, random number generation, that is, or rather just, you know, the outcome may change greatly. Like, especially if one character gets multiple hits in a row on the other character, like there, Archaon just took a ton of burst damage, has to run away. You know, the support of the chariots and the throwing axes are really not making that a great fight for him, so Norm once again going to go into kite mode here with all of his horsemen and horsemasters. Try and continue to throw their javelins, just get rid of these supporting Centaurs, considering the throwing axes are still, you know, dangerous to Archaon. And not only that, but in melee support, you know, distracting, getting a full surround, getting those extra little chip hits, leadership damage, all going to be very important for supporting Taurox against Archaon, and just making sure you stack the odds in your favor to try and win those highly random single entity fights, right? Archaon having slightly better stats, and also Norm here. The other benefit is, while he's kiting, he's getting his abilities off cooldown, right? Like, we see Standard Die get popped there, Cascading Fire Cloak, Slayer of Kings, all those abilities. The more time he takes to kite, use his ammunition here, and get those abilities off of cooldown and try and go for a big power spike to finish the Brass Bull here. But Taurox charging through, doesn't care too much about the Marauder Horsemen or the Centaurs, really. Just wants Archaon's lunch money. Thankfully, Archaon's extra speed is going to benefit him greatly here as he's able to pull away. Taurox also is exhausted, whereas Archaon, because of that Foe Seeker, Norm's been great about keeping that on cooldown the entire game. He is only tired, so that is going to make, or even winded, sorry. That's going to make a pretty significant difference. Here comes Archaon, going to charge in with the support of the Marauder Horsemen. There's Slayer of Kings. Or sorry, Cascading Fire Cloak. He's also going to pop Slayer of Kings, coincidentally. Go up to 952 weapon strength. We'll keep it in close, as looks like he might have taken a hit there. Actually, let's keep the health bars up. Yeah, all it's going to take is, yeah, one hit. Taurox, he pops Brass Body just a hair too late to, you know, not take that hit. Now he's routed, and balance power still fraudulently at even. It is definitely Warriors of Chaos favored at this point. But that's just kind of Beastman balance of power. Always been that way. I have no idea why, but Norm is able to go ahead and finish cleaning that up. So, great game. Love the use of Archaon here. I just, honestly, Lord of the End Times, he should be one of the best lords in the game, and I'm confident right now that a lot of the focus is on Sigvald, with good reason. In certain matchups where you don't want your lord to get sniped, Sigvald's definitely the right option, but in basically any other matchup, I mean, Big Bird's also kind of for that as well in missile-centric matchups, but I would generally say that Archaon is a lord that does a lot. You know, if he's not completely overmatched in melee, then he will generate really good value. If you have good micro with him too, like the speed is surprisingly good on him, the ability to keep him out of harm's way with good screening and everything. So, you know, he's super strong right now, and just absolutely dumped on Taurox there. I mean, Taurox did get a few good hits in, but Archaon literally, like, almost doubling the value that Taurox got, you know, here. Likewise, Warriors of Chaos roster does pretty well. A lot of units have a tough time, but the Horse Masters in particular get really good value on the Marauder Horsemen as well. Manticores are definitely suffered, but that's to be expected. It kind of goes to show, like, you know, if there's if one single entity is just way stronger than the other single entities, then the one single entity will probably win, even in a 2v1. Although that wasn't necessarily a true 2v1 because these Minotaurs were also in there contributing, who themselves pay for themselves. The Centaurs with Throwing Axe is also pretty solid. Tuskor Chariots quite easy to pay for themselves. Also, the Ungors is a weird one. I don't really know. I don't trade well into even Marauders, so I'm not really sure about this pick here. I mean, if you want to go with a cheap infantry, I'm a big fan of Ungor Spears. Not really so much of a fan of the regular Ungor infantry. I mean, if we just kind of have a quick comparison here. I know this is a little bit of a side to the main discussion, but I wanted to just quickly compare. I mean, 22-24, these guys are really more like skinks or goblins. 34-28 for Chaos Marauders, 90 unit models. I mean, they even have more HP, a lot more HP per model, too. Pretty similar weapon strength, but, I mean, the Marauders are just that much a little bit better, that they're going to pretty consistently win against Ungors for less cost. So, again, I don't really get this. If you want cheap infantry, the Ungor Spearman Herd at the very least have more melee defense, and they have a decent anti-large bonus, also have a decent melee attack for a low-tier spear. So they can still get a little bit of damage in, and they're going to last slightly longer because they're higher melee defense. Plus 6 melee defense is a pretty considerable difference. And of course, if they're supporting any cavalry or large engagements, they're obviously going to be much better. So just a few things to consider. But yeah, Taurox versus Archaon. I didn't expect Archaon to necessarily do that good. I mean, I thought he would do well, but even kitted out here, like with just Cascading Firecloak and Burning Head, Slayer of Kings. I don't know if he had Crown of Domination, but it's probably worth taking, depending on the type of build you have. And then Taurox, I'd imagine, is going to be cheaper. Let's see, what did he have? Brass Body. I don't think he had Blood Beast. He did have Slaughterer's Call. He did not have Rune Tortured Axes, though, which would have definitely made a difference to get that extra weapon strength and melee attack, but he's way cheaper. So, I mean, Taurox just about pays for himself even regardless there. You would expect with Archaon being so much more expensive that especially utilizing his magic, he should be able to win. Even without magic, I mean, it's going to be close. It's a bit of a toss-up. There's enough parity between these two that, you know, Taurox may win. I don't know. I'd need to do some testing, test it a number of times to see kind of, you know, what percentage chance Taurox has of winning that. But, I mean, Archaon, the extra charge and weapon strength that you get from Frenzy is super helpful. The fact that he has multiple melee defense buffs, whereas Taurox, you know, arguably has one much stronger, includes damage resistance, but it has a 120-second cooldown, whereas, you know, Standard Die and Cascading Firecloak, you can alternate these two to keep a consistent 24 melee defense uptime for a lot longer. That may or may not be more important than the damage resistance, depending on the situation you find yourself in. Obviously, like a magic or missile snipe, it's better to have Brass Body, but any kind of melee engagement, it's going to be better to have Archaon's abilities. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. It's a pretty interesting comparison. Thought it was a fun battle, so thanks for Norm sending that one in. You guys enjoyed this type of content, be sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend. I appreciate that so much. Thank you all again. See you next time.